Mija, you need to get back out there. I set up a date for you.
A date? Abuela, I haven't dated in ages.
It's time. He's a good man.
Okay.
The sound was what everyone remembered later,
Hi, sorry I'm
not
late.
the chaos that came before it. Frank Brennan's voice rising across Beck Dynasty's dining room, the way heads turned, the sharp intake of breath from surrounding tables. Not even the moment itself, really, though that was seared into Madeline Reyes's memory in a way she knew would take years of therapy to dull. It was the sound of the slap that cut through everything else. The crack of Frank's palm connecting with her face echoed off the high ceilings of the upscale Korean fusion restaurant like a gunshot. Her head snapped to the side. Physics and violence, nothing she could control. The world tilted. Her cheek burned. Someone gasped. A woman at a nearby table made a small sound of horror. Madeline's vision swam. Her ears rang. She tasted copper. Across the table, her date, Colin Beck, the man her grandmother had set her up with 3 hours ago, didn't move. Not yet. He was still sitting, still holding his wine glass in one hand, the stem between his fingers like he was at a gallery opening rather than witnessing an assault. His expression hadn't changed. Calm, almost curious, like he was watching something interesting happen to someone else. Frank grabbed Madeline's arm. His fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. She knew this, had catalog of bruises from the 8 months they'd dated before she got smart enough to run. You think you can just ignore me? Block my number? Get a fucking restraining order? Colin set down his wine glass. The movement was so controlled, so deliberate, that it somehow cut through the noise of the restaurant more effectively than shouting would have. Everyone noticed. The whole room held its breath. He stood, adjusted his cuffs. Both of them, carefully, taking his time. Then he moved. Madeline didn't see exactly how it happened. 1 second, Frank's hand was on her arm, painful and possessive. The next second, Frank was on his knees, his wrist bent at an angle that was definitely wrong, his face white with shock and pain. And Colin was standing over him with the same expression he'd had at the table. Calm. Almost bored. "You're in violation of a court order," Colin said quietly. His voice had no heat in it at all. That's unwise. That's when the security appeared.
Who are you?
Not restaurant security. Colin's security. 4 men in dark suits materializing from somewhere. The kitchen, the bar, the street. Madeline didn't know. Moving with the coordinated efficiency of people who'd done this exact thing before. They took Frank. Just took him. Lifted him off his knees and walked him toward the exit while he was still processing that his wrist was possibly broken, and the man he'd confronted had done it without raising his voice. Colin sat back down, picked up his wine glass like nothing had happened. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said to Madeline. "Are you all right?" And Madeline Reyes, corporate attorney, Stanford law grad, woman who'd spent 2 years in therapy learning to rebuild herself after Frank, looked at the man her grandmother had set her up with and thought, "Who the hell are you?"
Who are you?
Subscribe right now because you need to see how this story unfolds. This is not your typical romance. Hit that notification bell. Now let's go back to the beginning. 2 hours before that slap. 2 hours earlier. Madeline had not wanted to go on this date. She'd been clear about that with her grandmother, Abuela Rosa, who at 73 years old still ran her Boyle Heights neighborhood through a combination of fierce love and strategic nosiness. Madeline had come over for Sunday dinner and made the mistake of mentioning, casually, that she was thinking about maybe starting to date again. The restraining order against Frank had been in place for 6 months. She'd been in therapy for 18 months. She'd learned to sleep without nightmares most nights. She'd stopped flinching when men raised their voices in meetings. She was, by most measures, doing okay. "You need to meet someone good," Abuela Rosa had said, passing the arroz con gandules. "I know someone. His grandmother's old friend. Good family. Korean. Very respectable." "Abuela, I'm not interested in being set up." "You're 32 years old, mija. Time doesn't stop because you were hurt." "I'm aware of my age, thank you." "This boy, He's a boy? This man, Abuela Rosa corrected herself, with a look that suggested Madeline was being deliberately difficult, is very successful. Import-export business, restaurants, very cultured. His grandmother says he needs to meet a woman with substance, not these Los Angeles girls with the fake everything. How encouraging that I have substance. You do, Abuela Rosa said seriously. You survived something terrible and you rebuilt yourself. That's substance. Also, you're beautiful and smart and you make good money, but mostly the substance. Which is how Madeline found herself at 7 p.m. on a Saturday evening, walking into Baek Dynasty in Koreatown, wearing a dress she'd bought specifically for this date because all her other dresses reminded her of Frank. Either he'd bought them, or he'd told her they made her look fat, or he'd ripped one off her in a way that wasn't romantic. This dress was hers. Emerald green, fitted but not tight, professional but not severe. The dress of a woman who'd chosen herself, after years of letting someone else choose her. Colin Beck was already at the table when she arrived. He stood when he saw her. Actually stood, the way men in movies did, but real men rarely bothered with. He was Korean, late 30s, wearing a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made for his exact measurements, which it probably had. His hair was styled, but not fussy. His face was the kind of handsome that was almost too perfect, except for a small scar near his left eyebrow that suggested somewhere in his past, perfection had taken a hit. Madeline Reyes? He asked. Colin Beck, it's a pleasure to meet you. His handshake was firm but brief. He pulled out her chair, waited until she was seated before he sat. Your grandmother speaks very highly of you, he said. My grandmother speaks very highly of everyone, except her neighbours and the entire city council, Madeline replied. Colin smiled. It was a real smile, not the practice smile of someone performing charm. Mine is the same, except add the entire import-export industry and most of Los Angeles County. What do you import? Madeline asked. Standard first date question. Safe. Mostly Korean goods, food products, ceramics, textiles, some luxury items. My family started the business 40 years ago when they first came to Los Angeles. He paused. I'm trying to expand into more legitimate partnerships with... He stopped. Madeline noticed. More legitimate? She prompted. Poor word choice, Colin said smoothly. I meant more diverse, broader markets. My family's business has been traditional. I'm trying to modernize. It was a recovery, but Madeline had been a lawyer long enough to notice when someone caught themselves before saying something revealing. She filed it away. Probably nothing. Maybe he worked with his family, and there was tension about how things were run. Most family businesses had that dynamic. And you're an attorney, Colin said. Corporate law? Mergers and acquisitions, primarily. I help companies navigate complicated partnerships without getting sued or going bankrupt. Sounds stressful. Sounds boring when I say it out loud like that, Madeline admitted. But I like puzzles. I like finding the solution that makes everyone walk away, if not happy, then at least not actively trying to destroy each other. Important skill, Colin said. His eyes were very dark, very steady. He looked at her the way very few people looked at anything, with complete attention, like she was the only thing in the room worth noticing. It should have felt intense. Instead, it felt restful, like she didn't have to perform. They talked. About Los Angeles, about their grandmothers, about the restaurant. His family owned it, along with 6 others across Koreatown and West LA. About her work, his work, the stress of having families who had expectations with a capital E. He didn't ask about her dating history. Didn't ask why a successful, attractive woman was being set up by her grandmother instead of dating casually like everyone else in LA. Didn't press when she mentioned she'd taken some time off from dating, for personal reasons. An hour in, Madeline realized she was enjoying herself. Genuinely enjoying herself, not performing enjoyment while mentally cataloging exit routes and red flags. Colin was smart, funny in a dry way that surprised her. Respectful. He'd asked her preferences on wine, on food, on whether she wanted to share dishes or order separately. He talked about his family with affection, but not blind loyalty, admitting his father was difficult and his mother was very concerned with appearances. My abuela is convinced I'm going to die alone, surrounded by law briefs, Madeline said, hence this setup. My grandmother is convinced I'm going to marry someone inappropriate out of spite, Colin replied, hence her vetting process with your grandmother to find someone suitable. Are we suitable? Madeline asked. I don't know yet, Colin said honestly, but I'm enjoying finding out. That's when Frank walked in. Madeline saw him before he saw her, a skill she'd developed over 6 months of hypervigilance, always scanning exits, always noting who was coming through doors, always ready to run. Frank Brennan, 6'2", 200 pounds of explosive anger wrapped in charm that fooled everyone exactly once. He'd been her boyfriend for 8 months before the night he put her in the ER with a concussion and broken ribs. Before the restraining order. Before the therapy and the nightmares and the slow, painful reconstruction of a self that knew how to exist without fear. He was across the restaurant, being seated with a blonde woman Madeline didn't recognize. He hadn't seen her yet. Madeline's entire body went cold. Her heart rate kicked into overdrive. Her hands started to shake. She pressed them flat against her thighs under the table where Colin couldn't see. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice came out wrong, too high, too breathy. "I need to use the restroom." She stood, walked quickly toward the bathroom. Didn't run. Running would draw attention, and Frank fed on attention. She made it to the single-occupancy bathroom and locked the door, and spent 3 minutes breathing through a panic attack while she stared at her reflection in the mirror. He can't hurt you. There's a restraining order. He can't come near you. You're safe. Except she didn't feel safe. Safety was a concept her therapist kept insisting was possible, but her body knew better. She texted her friend Melissa. "Frank is here. Same restaurant. I'm in the bathroom. Don't know if I can go back out there." Melissa's reply came immediately. "Do you want me to call you with a fake emergency?" Madeline considered it. The easy exit. The lie that would get her out of the restaurant and away from Frank, and also end this date with Colin, which had been going surprisingly well. She texted back, "No, I'm okay. Just needed a minute." She wasn't okay, but she was learning, slowly, painfully, that fear didn't have to make decisions for her anymore. She fixed her lipstick, squared her shoulders, walked back out. Colin was exactly where she'd left him, but something about his posture had changed. He was still relaxed, still holding his wine glass, still the picture of ease, but his eyes were scanning the restaurant with a precision that reminded Madeline of how security guards moved. Professional, assessing. She sat down. "Sorry about that. Are you all right?" Colin's attention shifted back to her completely. "Fine, just..." She stopped, decided to be honest. "My ex-boyfriend is here, across the restaurant. I didn't expect to see him." Colin's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went very still. "The one with the restraining order?" Madeline blinked. "How did you..." "Your grandmother mentioned it. She wanted me to know you'd been through something difficult. I think she was concerned I might be careless with you." He paused. "I won't be." "You asked my grandmother about my dating history?" "She volunteered it. I didn't ask. But I listened." Colin set down his wine glass. "Do you want to leave?" "No," Madeline said. Then, surprising herself, "I want to finish our date. I'm not letting him take anything else from me." Colin smiled, small but real. "All right, then we finish our date. And if he approaches you, I'll handle it." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Colin said, "but I will anyway." They continued eating, talking. Colin asked about her favorite cases. She told him about a merger she'd negotiated that saved 300 jobs. He told her about opening his first restaurant at 25, with money he'd saved from working in his family business. Madeline was starting to relax again when Frank stood up from his table and started walking toward them, Everything after that happened exactly the way Madeline had described in the opening. The confrontation, the slap, Colin's surgical precision in breaking Frank's wrist, the security team that appeared from nowhere. What she hadn't described was what happened after. Colin called for the check, which the manager comped entirely, apologizing profusely for the disturbance. He walked Madeline out of the restaurant with his hand at the small of her back, not guiding or pushing, just present. Outside, the valet brought his car, a black Genesis sedan, expensive but not showy. He opened her door, waited. "I should take you home," he said, "but I'd like to make sure you're actually okay first. Would you let me drive you somewhere to talk? Somewhere public? Somewhere you feel safe?" Most men would have taken her straight home, or taken her to their place, or assumed the date was over and moved on. Colin was asking, and offering somewhere public, and acknowledging that she might not feel safe. "There's a coffee place in Silver Lake I like," Madeline said. "They're open late." "Direct me," Colin said. They drove. He didn't fill the silence with empty reassurances or ask her to relive what had just happened. He just drove, following her directions, his hands steady on the wheel. The coffee place was a 24-hour spot Madeline had discovered during her worst insomnia nights after leaving Frank. They got coffee, hers with too much sugar, his black, and sat at a table by the window. "I should probably explain," Colin said. "Explain what?" "How I knew to break his wrist that way. How my security team appeared so quickly. How I stayed that calm." He paused. "I'm not what you think I am, Madeline." "And what do I think you are?" "A legitimate businessman with a nice suit and good manners." "Are you not that?" "I'm that too," Colin said. "But I'm also the son of a family that's had complicated business practices for 3 generations. My grandfather came to LA from Seoul in the 1970s with $100 and a willingness to do whatever it took to build something. What he built was part legitimate business and part other things." "Other things," Madeline repeated. "Like?" "Protection services, territory management, import channels that weren't always strictly legal." Colin met her eyes. "My father's generation tried to clean things up. Some success, some failures. My generation is trying to finish the job, go completely legitimate. But we still have connections, resources, people who work for us who are very good at certain things." "Like appearing out of nowhere when someone violates a restraining order," Madeline said. "Exactly like that." "Are you telling me you're Mafia?" Colin smiled slightly. "I'm telling you my family has roots in a world I'm trying to walk away from. That I have resources most people don't. That if someone threatens you, I can make it stop in ways the police can't." He paused. "I'm telling you this now because if we continue seeing each other, you'll figure it out anyway, and I'd rather you know the truth and decide if you can accept it than lie and have you discover it later." Madeline drank her too sweet coffee and thought about her father, about the things Abuela Rosa had never said out loud but Madeline had pieced together anyway, about the world that existed in the shadows of legitimate society, and how close she'd come to it before choosing law school instead. "I appreciate the honesty," she said finally. "Does it bother you?" "I don't know yet," Madeline said. "Ask me on the 3rd date." Colin looked surprised. "There's going to be a 3rd date?" "Well, tonight was technically the 1st date, even though it ended with assault and a Mafia confession. So yes, there can be a 3rd date, if you still want one after I tell you something." "What's that?" "My father's in Corcoran State Prison," Madeline said. "He's been there since I was 12. He ran drugs for the Sureños until he got caught in a sting. I changed my last name from Gutierrez to Reyes when I turned 18, so it wouldn't follow me to college. My grandmother raised me. She doesn't talk about him. I don't talk about him. But I grew up knowing what that world looks like from the inside. So your family's complicated business practices don't shock me as much as you might think." Colin was quiet for a moment. "I didn't know that." "Most people don't. I don't advertise it. But if we're being honest, then that's my honesty. I know what you're trying to walk away from, because I walked away from it myself. And you still want a third date? I want a second date first, Madeline said. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Colin laughed, a real laugh. Fair enough. Like this video if you're already invested in where this is going, because what happens next is going to test everything they just confessed to each other. Keep watching. 2 weeks later. The second date was dinner at a quiet Italian place in Los Feliz. No drama, no exes, just conversation that went 3 hours without either of them noticing. The third date was a Saturday afternoon at LACMA, walking through exhibits and arguing good-naturedly about whether modern art was genius or pretension. The fourth date was Colin cooking for her at his place. Korean food his mother had taught him, his kitchen in a high-rise overlooking downtown, the implicit trust of bringing her to his private space. Somewhere around the fifth date, Madeline realized she was happy. Actually happy. Not performing happiness or faking it until she made it. Just at ease. Colin made her laugh. He challenged her opinions without dismissing them. He remembered things she said and brought them up later. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. And he never, not once, raised his voice, got impatient, crowded her space, made her feel small. "You're different than I expected," Madeline said one night, lying on his couch while he did dishes from the meal they'd cooked together. "Different how?" "Softer. You broke a man's wrist without flinching. But you remember that I don't like cilantro, and you asked permission before you kissed me the first time. And you do your own dishes instead of having staff do everything." "I'm complicated," Colin said. He dried his hands and came to sit beside her. "I can be soft with you, and dangerous to people who threaten you. Those things aren't contradictory." "They should be," Madeline said. "But they're not." He traced a finger along her jawline. "Does it bother you?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "Sometimes I forget what you are. Then I see your security team, or you make a phone call, and things happen that shouldn't be that easy, and I remember. And I don't know how to feel about it." "Tell me when you figure it out," Colin said. That's when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. "You think you're safe with him. You're not. I'm watching." The message included a photo. Madeline and Colin, taken an hour ago through the window of his apartment. From outside. From far enough away that it had to be a telephoto lens. Madeline's hands started shaking. Colin saw the phone, read the message. His expression went very still. "That's Frank," Madeline said. "He's violating the restraining order. Again." "May I?" Colin held out his hand for the phone. She gave it to him. Watched him forward the message to someone. 3 seconds later, his own phone rang. He answered, spoke rapid Korean, hung up. "My people will find him," Colin said. "Probably tonight. Definitely by tomorrow." "And then what?" "Then I'll make sure he understands that continuing to violate a court order is unwise." "Colin, I won't kill him," Colin said, as if that was the concern. "I won't even hurt him. I'll just make it clear that certain actions have certain consequences, and that you're under my protection now, whether he likes it or not." "I didn't ask for your protection." "I know." Colin handed her phone back. "But you have it anyway. You can tell me you don't want it, and I'll respect that. But Frank Brennan is not going to hurt you again. I can promise you that." Madeline looked at the message, at the photo taken from outside Colin's apartment, at the proof that even after 6 months of restraining orders and therapy and rebuilding her life, Frank was still there, still watching, still trying to control her through fear. "I hate that I need protecting," she said quietly. "You don't need it," Colin corrected. According to the police report, he'd been found attempting to tamper with Madeline's car, installing a GPS tracker under the wheel well. Security cameras caught everything. His parole officer was notified. Additional restraining order violations were documented. He was currently sitting in county jail, awaiting a hearing that would likely extend his sentence. Colin's people had nothing to do with it, officially. Unofficially, Madeline suspected the anonymous tip to the police had come from someone on Colin's payroll, and the security cameras that suddenly started working after being broken for weeks might have been fixed by the same people. "You didn't hurt him," she said when Colin told her. "I didn't have to. The system you work in every day did it for me. I just encouraged the system to pay attention." It should have bothered her. It didn't. She was tired of being afraid. And if Colin had resources that could make her safe without anyone getting hurt, she'd take it. 3 months into their relationship, Colin invited her to a restaurant opening. Not one of his family's restaurants, a new venture, a partnership with a group from Seoul. High-end Korean barbecue in Beverly Hills. The kind of place that would attract celebrities and business deals and the Korean elite from both coasts. "It's a big night for my family," Colin said. "I'd like you there." "As your girlfriend or as your lawyer?" Madeline teased. "As the woman I'm in love with," Colin said. Not teasing, dead serious. Madeline's breath caught. "You love me?" "I do. Have for weeks." Didn't want to scare you by saying it too soon. "I love you too," Madeline said. Because she did. Somewhere between the first date disaster and the third date museum visit and the quiet nights cooking together, she'd fallen completely. "Then come to the opening," Colin said. "Meet my family. Let them see the woman who's managed to make me want something beyond the business." The opening was everything Madeline expected. Beautiful space, expensive art, politicians and celebrities and business people in designer clothes drinking expensive Korean liquor. Colin's mother was elegant and sharp-eyed, assessing Madeline with a look that suggested she saw everything. His father was quieter, more reserved, but shook her hand and said, "My son speaks highly of you." It was an hour into the event when Madeline overheard the conversation. She'd stepped away to the bathroom, was walking back through a service corridor, when she heard Colin's voice through an office door that had been left slightly ajar. Territory dispute with the Park family needs to be handled carefully. They're claiming Koreatown west of Vermont is theirs now. We've had that territory for 20 years. Another voice, older, Colin's father. "Let them claim it. We don't need that kind of attention right now. We're trying to go legitimate." "We can't just give up territory, Father. It sends the wrong message." "Then handle it quietly. No violence, no police attention. Just make it clear we're not stepping aside." Madeline froze. Territory. Police attention. The language of organized crime dressed up in corporate speak. She already knew Colin's family history. He'd told her, but knowing abstractly and hearing it discussed like any other business matter were different things. She stepped away from the door before they heard her, went to the bathroom, stared at herself in the mirror. You knew what his family was. This shouldn't surprise you. But knowing and knowing were different things. When she came back out, Colin was waiting for her in the hallway. "You heard," he said. Not a question. "I heard. And I need to think about whether I can live with this," Madeline said honestly. "Not just the history, the present, the active decisions you're still making about things that aren't legal." "Fair enough," Colin said. "Take the time you need. I'll wait." This is the moment that changes everything. What Madeline does next will determine the entire story. Stay with me. excused himself immediately, came out. Madeline. I can live with it, she said, on 3 conditions. Colin waited. 1. You continue working toward going completely legitimate. I don't need it to happen overnight, but I need to see progress. 2. You never lie to me about what you're doing. I'd rather know the truth and have to sit with it than be lied to for my own protection. 3. You introduce me to your lawyer. Because if you're going legitimate, you need better legal counsel than whoever's been handling your corporate filings. Colin smiled. You want to be my lawyer? I want to be your partner, Madeline corrected, in every way that matters. That includes helping you build something clean from something complicated. I know how to do that. It's literally what I do for a living. You're sure? I'm sure that I love you. I'm sure that you make me happy. I'm sure that if I walk away from this because it's complicated, I'll regret it. She paused. I'm also sure that my father's in prison and my grandmother's best friend is apparently connected to Korean organized crime, and I grew up 3 blocks from gang territory. I'm not some innocent person being corrupted by your dark world. I'm someone who understands that world and chose to leave it, meeting someone who's trying to do the same thing. That's not corruption. That's partnership. Colin pulled her into his office and kissed her like he'd been holding back for 8 days and couldn't hold back anymore. Partnership, he said, when they finally broke apart. I like that. 6 months later, Colin took her to meet his grandmother. The meeting happened in a traditional Korean home in Hancock Park, the kind of old money property that spoke of decades of careful accumulation. Colin's grandmother, Halmoni Park, though everyone called her Mrs. Park, was 83 years old and had eyes that missed nothing. She served tea, made small talk, asked Madeline about her work, her education, her family. Your grandmother and I were neighbors in Boyle Heights 50 years ago, Mrs. Park said. Before either of our families had money, before my husband built his business, before her daughter married and had you. We were just 2 immigrant women trying to survive in a country that didn't particularly want us. She never told me that, Madeline said. We agreed not to speak of it once our families became successful. Different paths, different communities. But old friends stay friends, even in silence. Mrs. Park sipped her tea. She called me 6 months before your first date, told me about you, about what you'd survived, about how her granddaughter needed someone who understood strength and danger, and how to be gentle despite both. She asked if I knew such a man. And you thought of Colin, Madeline said. I thought my grandson needed someone who wouldn't be afraid of our family's shadow, but also wouldn't be seduced by it. Someone who'd push him toward the light. Mrs. Park set down her cup. Was I right? I love him, Madeline said simply. That wasn't the question. I know, but it's my answer. I love him, and I'm helping him build something better than what his grandfather started. That's all I can promise. Mrs. Park smiled. Rosa chose well. Then came the hard part. Colin's father and uncle joined them. A formal meeting, practically a tribunal. They asked questions about Madeline's work, her understanding of their business, her discretion, her loyalty. Our family has enemies, Colin's uncle said. People who would use any information about us to destroy what we've built. If you're going to be part of Colin's life, you're going to learn things, see things, know things that could be dangerous if shared. Can we trust you? Yes, Madeline said, on one condition. The room went quiet. What condition? Colin's father asked. That you trust me enough to let me help. I'm not going to be the girlfriend who sits quietly while you make decisions that affect your family's future. I'm a lawyer, a good one. If you're trying to go legitimate, you need someone who understands how to navigate that transition without leaving yourself vulnerable to prosecution or attack. I can help you do that, but only if you trust me enough to let me. Colin's uncle and father looked at each other. She has her father's boldness, Colin's father said. Madeline went very still. You know about my father? We know everything about you, Miss Reyes, including that your father, Javier Gutierrez, is currently serving 15 years at Corcoran for drug trafficking with the Sureños, including that you changed your name to escape that legacy, including that you've built an entirely legitimate career despite coming from the same world we're trying to leave behind. And does that concern you? Madeline asked. No, Colin's father said. It reassures us. You understand what we are because you've already walked away from it once. You know the cost, you know the risks, and you're still here. He pulled out a small box. Inside was a jade ring, traditional Korean design, family heirloom. This belonged to Colin's great-grandmother. It's traditionally given to the woman who will be the next matriarch of this family, if you'll accept it. Madeline looked at Colin. He nodded, almost imperceptibly. She took the ring, put it on. I accept, she said. On the condition that we do this right. No half measures. If we're going legitimate, we go all the way. And I help make it happen. Agreed, Colin's father said. Mrs. Park smiled and poured more tea. The wedding was 6 months later. It was a fusion ceremony that made both families slightly uncomfortable and completely happy. Traditional Korean pyebaek ceremony in the morning, where Madeline bowed to Colin's parents and received their blessings. Western ceremony in the afternoon at a garden venue in Pasadena, where Abuela Rosa cried, and Madeline's father granted early release after Colin's lawyers filed a motion that Madeline definitely didn't officially know about, walked her down the aisle. You're marrying a good man, her father said quietly as they walked. Better than I was. Better than I could have been for your mother. He's trying to be, Madeline said. That's what matters. The reception was a chaotic, joyful mix of Korean and Latin American traditions. Traditional bows and money dance. Mariachi and Korean drums. Food from both cultures served family style at long tables where strangers became friends through shared meals and too much soju. Colin's gift to her was a building in downtown LA. 5 floors, newly renovated, perfect for a law office. Her name was already on the lease. Madeline Reyes Law, specializing in corporate transitions and family business restructuring. Your first client better not be your own family, she said. My second client, Colin promised. The first is a restaurant chain in Koreatown that needs help with some complicated ownership structures. Suspiciously convenient. Completely coincidental, Colin said with a straight face. 1 year later, Madeline sat in her corner office on the 5th floor of the building her husband had bought her, 7 months pregnant and reviewing a contract that would finalize the transfer of one of the Peck family's import channels to a completely legitimate shipping company. It was tedious work, complex work, the kind of legal maneuvering that required 3 different filings with 3 different agencies and careful language that satisfied everyone from the IRS to the California State Board. She loved it. Colin appeared in her doorway. You're supposed to be on maternity leave. I'm on modified leave. There's a difference. How was the meeting? Park family agreed to the territorial division. No conflict, no violence. Just lawyers and contracts, like you suggested. He came to sit on the edge of her desk. 3 years ago, that negotiation would have involved baseball bats and hospital visits. Now it involves lawyers and paperwork. You've changed my family, Madeline. We've changed your family, she corrected. I just provided the legal framework. You did the hard part. The hard part, Colin said, was finding someone who made me want to change in the first place. He put his hand on her stomach. Their daughter kicked, strong, insistent, already demanding attention. She's going to be trouble, Madeline said. She's going to be perfect, Colin corrected. Outside the window, Los Angeles spread out in every direction. A city built by people who came from somewhere else and built something new. A city of reinvention and second chances and complicated histories that could become clean futures if you worked hard enough. Madeline looked at her husband, the man who'd broken her abuser's wrist without raising his voice, who'd protected her without controlling her, who'd trusted her enough to let her help him build something better than what his grandfather started. I'm happy, she said, surprised by it, not performing it, just true. Good, Colin said. You deserve to be. And for the first time in her life, Madeline believed him. Madeline Reyes walked away from an abusive ex and into a relationship with a man whose family was trying to leave organized crime behind. She didn't become his mob wife. She became his legal counsel, his strategic partner, his equal. That's not a romance. That's a revolution. Subscribe to this channel for Korean Mafia romance, where women are powerful in their own right, and love doesn't mean losing yourself. New story every week. Comment below. Would you have taken the jade ring? Would you have helped the family go legitimate? Tell me the truth. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that healing from trauma doesn't mean you can't be strong. That loving someone dangerous doesn't mean you become powerless. That partnership means building something better together. I'll see you in the next one.